Next up, joining us all the way from Hong Kong, we have the CEO of SingularityNET, a decentralized AI network. He's also an expert in artificial general intelligence, a subject in which he has authored more than 150 scientific papers. Please give it up for Dr. Ben Goertzel.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be back here in Berkeley. I've been here a bunch of times, going back to the 1970s, I guess, and then sometime in the early 90s, I spent a summer here doing a workshop on mathematical immunology. There's been a lot of depth of thinking here, and there's also been great work in AI, a field I've been working in for 30 years, I guess, since the late 1980s. So what I want to talk to you about today is, where I see the AI field as it is now, where AI has come, which is a pretty amazing place, and then where AI is going in the next few years and decades, which I think also can be really amazing in a positive way, but also has some risk of being dramatic in a less positive way. And so I want to talk about where AI is now, where it's going, and I want to talk about the importance of decentralized control in guiding AI to the next level, so the power of decentralized AI. If we want to look at AI in the really, really big picture, I mean, the AI field has been around a while. You could put the beginning in the 1950s with the first AI summer workshop at Dartmouth College. You could put it earlier with Norbert Wiener's book, Cybernetics, in the 1930s. One way or another, it's been around close to a century, but only in the last, let's say, 5 to 10 years has it really come into its own. And we now have an amazing proliferation of what I call narrow AIs, AIs that can solve very particular problems very well, in many cases better than human beings. But I've spent much of my career thinking about and actively working toward the next step, what I call AGI, artificial general intelligence. This is AIs that can generalize like people, transfer knowledge to domains and problems they've never imagined before. They can creatively dream and envision things that didn't exist and then create them. Moving from narrow AI to AGI, now we're not there yet, but there's my own research team, there's teams in Google DeepMind and in Facebook and many top universities actively, and many large corporations in China, Russia, outside the US, actively working toward general intelligence. And it's still speculative. I believe we're going to get there within my career, within, let's say, 5 to 20 or 30 years from now. And I'm working to make it sooner, as are many others. But that's, of course, not the end. Once you have an AI that has the human mind's capability to generalize, imagine, dream, and create and reflect, this AI will be able to do computer science. It'll be able to do engineering. It'll be able to read everything on the internet. I think it's not going to be an extremely long time between AGI and what you could call ASI, or artificial superintelligence, which is, could quickly become as far beyond us as we are beyond, say, a bacterium, a cockroach, or a mouse, right? And I've been thinking these ideas as long as I can remember, since the early 1970s. Lately, they're starting to get taken seriously. You can discuss these at academic conferences or with the national leaders or CEOs of major corporations, and it's now taken as a plausible, reasonable thing that, yes, in our lifetimes, computers may be smarter than us and maybe tremendously smarter than us, and then this is both an amazing opportunity and a worry, right? And most of the high-profile successes of AI so far have been in relatively closed sorts of domains. So, game playing is an example. That's incredible. Certainly, these programs play Go and chess better than any human, far better than I ever had. But you got to remember that's, Go has a lot of combinations, but it's still a 19 by 19 board. Even something like StarCraft is very constrained compared to the world a human infant has to deal with. So we're still at the level of AIs that are good in relatively narrow domains and that choke a bit when you give them the full chaotic splendor of the everyday world that we live in. But we're working to overcome this, and I think the nature of exponential progress can be hard for the human brain to comprehend. But in many domains, we're making more progress in a year than we made in the previous 2 years. Like, progress is speeding up. It's not speeding up with everything. I mean, shirts and socks and forks remain about the same as they have been my whole life, but it's speeding up with AI, it's speeding up with genetic technology, it's speeding up with nanotechnology, it's speeding up in a lot of different ways, and there's a reasonable argument where we're nearing a takeoff where AI is going to start improving AI, and it's going to be getting smarter and smarter at an astounding pace. There's a number of different approaches to realizing this revolutionary transition from narrow AI to AGI and to superintelligence. I know deep neural nets are a very popular species of AI now, which are based on a very loose model of the human brain. I've been sort of putting forth a somewhat different approach. There's an open source toolkit called OpenCog you could look up online, where we use a sort of neural symbolic knowledge graph. You use neural nets to recognize sensory data, and you use a sort of probabilistic logic for abstract reasoning. You use simulations of evolution processes to come up with new ideas. But whether it's a deep neural net or an OpenCog system or one of the other many approaches being pioneered right now, what's cool is there's a lot of research teams working full-time on not just building narrow AI applications doing specific things, but trying to break through to artificial general intelligence. And one possibility I've been working toward a lot lately is what AI pioneer Marvin Minsky had called the society of minds, which is also an economy of minds. The idea that it may not be one algorithm written by one guy or one program written by one company that gives the breakthrough to general intelligence and then superintelligence. It may be a network of different AIs, each doing different things, specializing on certain kinds of problems, some of them specializing in generalization and abstraction, and maybe this network of AIs cooperating together, forming sort of emergent intelligence, maybe how we get the breakthrough. You could think of this as a global brain. And there's an institute at the Free University of Brussels in Europe called the Global Brain Institute, which is devoted specifically to thinking about this. In that perspective, you could look at the network of all the AIs living on the internet and all the embedded devices around the world, communicating together, sharing data with each other, outsourcing work to each other. This network of AIs can be viewed as a sort of like prebiotic soup for the emergence of general intelligence, not out of nothing, but out of many AIs cooperating with each other and boosting each other's intelligence. Of course, there are many risks and worries here, as well as amazing possibilities. I've noticed in the years I've been speaking publicly about this, maybe 5 or 6 years ago, everyone would raise their hand and say, wait, but isn't the AI going to just take over and kill us all or turn us all into batteries or something? And the last few years, it's shifted. No one asks that anymore. They just say, well, isn't the AI going to take all our jobs and make us unemployed? And it's an interesting shift. At first, I thought people had taken for granted that AI was going to kill them, but they just didn't want to be unemployed first during the last few years before they're murdered. But really, I think it's the idea of AI is going berserk like the Terminator and killing everyone. You can't rule it out, but it's not something that touches your everyday life right now. And I don't think that's extremely likely. I also think you can't reduce those odds to zero, as with any new technology. Whereas the prospect of AIs, taking away people's jobs or redefining people's jobs to make them worse and less interesting or lucrative, I mean, this is a real thing you can see right now, right? I mean, there's whole job categories like truck drivers or something. It's very palpable that long-distance truck driving can be replaced by self-driving trucks on the highway. And eventually, these automated cashier things at the supermarket may actually start to work, and then that job category goes away, right? So, I mean, we can see a real potential that AI will be, taking away human jobs and replacing them with a smaller number of more expert jobs, perhaps, which can then lead to a magnification of the already existing trend of global wealth and income inequality. And I think this can be a very real problem. And so we see in the US and Western Europe the notion of a universal basic income rising up. But then you wonder, like, who's going to give universal basic income to the average, say, subsistence farmer in the Central African Republic? I mean, it's not very clear how the geopolitics and economics are going to work out here as AIs and robots are able to do more and more tasks that humans are now doing. And this becomes a little more troublesome when you think about who controls AI now. Well, there's a couple very large governments like US and China. There's a handful of very large corporations which work very closely together with these governments. They're accumulating the data, they're concentrating the computing power, and they're hiring all the AI PhDs, right? And this may not be optimal. And you have to wonder, if we're building like a global brain, an artificial, general, and then super intelligence, what sort of infant AIs is this super intelligent global brain coming out of? Well, it seems to be one that is primarily concerned with spying on people, with trying to sell people stuff they don't need, and then with figuring out who to blow up, right? And is this really what we want the superintelligence to emerge out of? Advertising, surveillance, and military. I mean, not that those things are bad. They're all useful for some reason in society, but perhaps they shouldn't be the primary emphasis of AI if you view today's AI as something that greater intelligence is going to emerge from, right? I mean, there's a lot of negative potentials there, and you don't have to go too far to imagine some of the bad things that could happen. So I've been trying to work in various ways in the last few years, not only with OpenCog to work toward AIs that can generalize and imagine and manifest general intelligence, but also thinking, how can we make this AI as it evolves, how can we make it be positive rather than destructive? And one thing I've been doing is working with the Sophia robot. So I've been, for a number of years, the chief scientist and led the software team in Hanson Robotics, which makes Sophia in Hong Kong. One thing we've been doing with Sophia is using her as a meditation assistant, which has been pretty interesting. So we did a bunch of trials in Hong Kong and in Palo Alto with Sophia leading people through meditation and consciousness exercises. And we showed that for around 30% of our subjects, this had a quite interesting effect, like putting them into a fairly deep meditative state. In many cases, people who weren't able to meditate effectively with a human teacher or an app or something. And of course, it's a very particular application. These are expensive robots at this point. But I thought that was really interesting as a way of making an AI that's like the exact opposite of the Terminator, right? It's there to help people. It's there to bond with people in a very deep sense. And in some cases, people got a really profound positive effect from it. We're also looking at applying AI in biology to cure disease and to understand human aging. So we're studying the DNA of people age 105 or over and trying to use AI to understand what combinations of genetic variations help these people live so long, with the hope of understanding how to help other people live longer. So these are two specific applications of AI for things that aren't advertising, spying, or killing. And there's a lot more on the planet, but I think it should be a higher percentage of the work going into AI for doing things of benefit to humanity rather than, to preserve the power status of a particular nation or maximize the shareholder value of a particular corporation. And toward that end, in 2017, I founded a project called SingularityNET, which is a blockchain-based, decentralized platform for artificial intelligence. So it's a dApp store, like a decentralized AI marketplace, where anyone can put an AI into the internet and have it announce it's there to the rest of the decentralized network. Then a company that needs AI services can put a request into this decentralized AI network, and anyone who can fulfill that request, any AI that can fulfill that request will make an offer. So as well as a decentralized marketplace for AIs, it's designed so the AIs in the marketplace can outsource work to each other and cooperate with each other and share data with each other. But the interesting thing about this is it's architected more like Bitcoin or Ethereum or BitTorrent. It's decentralized, it's peer-to-peer, nobody owns the thing. It's a decentralized protocol for AIs to provide services and to cooperate with each other and join forces with each other to solve problems. And then our project, SingularityNET, was really the first major project to build a sort of blockchain-based platform for AI. But now there's dozens of other blockchain-based AI platforms and networks. So we have an industry organization, the Decentralized AI Alliance, which is like a network of all the decentralized AI networks. But of course, that's what the human body is. It's a network of networks of networks. That's what society is a network of networks of networks. So the hope is that by advancing AI in this decentralized way and bringing together people and AIs that are working for the common good, we can cause the global brain of AIs networking together to self-organize in a more positive direction. And it's a significant challenge, right? Because you're trying to nudge the weight of AI development away from huge governments and corporations. But on the other hand, you look at BitTorrent, you look at Linux, you look at the internet itself, and there are many cases when this sort of decentralized peer-to-peer community way of organizing things has in fact prevailed and become pervasive. And it's important that we can do this with artificial intelligence, because arguably this is even more important than these other things. This may be the next species of intelligence on the planet. So yeah, you can take a look online for further information on these things. There's the dia.foundation, SingularityNET.io, opencog.org, or just Google my name. You'll find a lot of information. But for anyone who is working in the AI field or in another field that can use AI, which means almost everyone, I think this is an extremely important thing to be thinking about. Not only are we on the cusp of creating a form of intelligence going beyond ourselves, but what kind of intelligence it is may depend on what the early stage AIs we're building now are actually doing and how they're organizing themselves. And we should make that as beneficial as we can. Thank you.